All right, we have a very special guest on the show today. She's been on this show before from the Grace Curley Show. Grace Curley, welcome back. How are you?
I'm so great, Darvio. Thank you so much for having me back. I'm so excited.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming back. I really appreciate it. So, it's been very interesting in DC the last couple of weeks here. Apparently nobody knows how to take care of classified documents. Talk a little bit for people who maybe, I mean, they might have heard it, but they might not be, fully aware of what's going on. Catch people up about the issue that the Biden administration is having right now.
All right. So first, there was a batch of documents that were found in a think tank, the Penn Biden Center, which is, a part of the University of Pennsylvania. So we get those documents first, and the Biden White House is trying to kind of poo-poo it. Turns out they actually found these documents before the midterm elections, but they haven't revealed it until now. And there's reports coming out that the DOJ, there was an understanding that no one would say anything, and somehow it leaked out to CBS News. So we get that first batch, and everyone's kind of up in arms because of the way the left reacted just a couple of months ago when this happened with Donald Trump. Then we got a second batch, and this one I actually think is even funnier. This one was in Joe Biden's Wilmington home garage near his Corvette. And so then that's when I started thinking, okay, now this is a real story. This has legs. The media is not going to let this one go so easily. Then the third batch we find at his private library in his residence. And my whole point with this, Darvio, is at what point do we stop saying a small handful? Because they keep saying it's a small handful, but now we're up to 3. There could be more. And so this whole comparison of it's not as bad as Donald Trump is not holding up anymore, at least not for me.
Well, I mean, if you are a regular, normal person and you have one classified document, you can go to jail. Like, all it takes is one, right?
No, absolutely. If your last name's not Biden, then yeah, all it takes is one. But in this case, what I think is really interesting is listening to when the first batch came out, the media was hell-bent on describing to people why this is not nearly as bad as when it was Donald Trump. And a lot of their reasoning was, well, Joe Biden's being cooperative and Joe Biden's talking with the National Archives. But there are a lot of reasons why I actually think this could be worse than Trump's, including the fact that Trump, you can like him or not like him, he was president when he had these documents. And when you're president, you have the option to declassify information. So even though he shouldn't have had them afterwards, and he probably should have been a little bit more forthcoming with it, he does have that option to declassify. I don't think as vice president, Joe Biden had that same kind of capability. And so there's a lot of things about this. And then, you hear about Mar-a-Lago and how their Secret Service at Mar-a-Lago, they tried to make it seem like it was very up in the air and very kind of sloppy the way he was storing them. But then we have the Hunter Biden of it all. We have the fact that Joe Biden's son, who used to have a crack addiction, has access to his garage, is taking out his Corvette at certain times. And this is where top secret or at least classified documents are being stored. So when I take the scoreboard, I think that it's actually a lot worse for Joe Biden.
And I think, too, we're talking with Grace Curley from the Grace Curley Show. If there was another way, if there was more of a way to bungle this, I don't know what it was, because they have handled this so poorly, like so poorly. How can you get, normally the basic crisis communications 101 is get out in front of it, get it all out at the very beginning so that you don't have the drip, 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 drip. They didn't do that. I mean, they invited the drip, drip, drip. What the hell are they thinking?
Yeah, it's such a good question because I really don't know. The timing of it is weird. The fact that these are being found all over the place is pretty bizarre. And it's strange to see, and I think it was a real giveaway for that this wasn't going to be the usual, little blip on the radar for Joe Biden, is that the media, and I'm sure you've all noticed this, the media has been kind of all over the map. They usually are very much on one team, on one note in the way they cover this. But you do have some people going rogue, some defectors saying, what gives? And you have like CBS's Ed O'Keefe challenging Karine Jean-Pierre, the White House press secretary, and really pushing back on this and saying, you guys weren't forthcoming, you weren't honest with us. And like you said, it has been a drip, drip, drip. So it's very disorganized, and it's hard not to look at this and say it's damaging for Joe Biden's 2024 prospects. And I don't know if maybe that's playing into it. Maybe that's the point.
Yeah, there's been some people that have asked that question that, is this a deliberate leak? Is this some kind of sabotage from inside of the palace trying to make Joe Biden a non-viable candidate for 2024? I'm not 100% sure I believe that, just because I don't think the Democrats have anywhere else to go.
Yeah, no, it is a good question, but I just think the age factor of Joe, I think it's probably exhausting for them. And when you really think about all of the scandals that he has withstood thus far, he's like a cat with 9 lives. And when I look at all of the problems Joe Biden's had, and of course, Hunter comes to mind, and of course, that double standard, but also the Afghanistan withdrawal, the southern border, these documents for me, if it was Grace Curley deciding the severity of these things, doesn't even crack his top 5 worst things he's done. So that part of it's weird too, that it's getting this much play when there were so many other opportunities for the media to really go after him, and they let go of that bone. But with this one, they won't let go of it, which I think is telling. I think they smell blood in the water, and they know that this could be the thing that sinks him.
We're talking with Grace Curley from the Grace Curley Show. And for me personally, I think part of it is the way that they bundled this. There's no stronger way or better way to piss the media off than to lie to them and make a fool out of them. And that's part of the issue. I think, going back to what you said earlier, when that first batch came out, there were people in the media who were rushing to say, it's no big deal. Well, 2 days later, you look dumb as hell when the next batch comes, and then the next batch comes after that. So I think part of it too is a family feud, if you will, between the media and the Biden administration, because I think they're just pissed off that they got misled and they all look stupid.
Yeah, that's such a good point, Darvio. And I have to tell you guys, there was this amazing, I don't know if anyone saw it, there was this amazing Reliable Sources newsletter today. And full disclosure, I don't sign up for the newsletter. I don't read Reliable Sources, but I saw it on Twitter. I saw some people talking about it, so I checked it out. And basically what it was that Oliver Darcy, who writes that newsletter, was able to get a lot of journalists who are in the White House press corps not on the record. They wanted to stay anonymous, but he was able to get them to tell him what they were thinking about all this. And when I tell you the knives were out for Karine Jean-Pierre in a way that I never expected, saying that she is at one point, someone in the article said she's the worst press secretary in the television era. And then they, added the addendum of, except for the Trump people, of course, they have to add that in. But still, it was a real damning report from CNN about the press secretary. And really, when you think about it, about Joe Biden, and it was like something I'd never seen. And it was part of that was the bungling of this and how she's managed to drop the ball and lie to them. And I think people are getting very, very frustrated with going into those press briefings and getting no answers whatsoever. It's like non-answers all the time. And people are just losing their patience for it.
Yeah, it's like seeing gaslighting at the podium right on full display. And I said this on Twitter a couple of days ago. I don't criticize White House press secretaries very often because it's a thankless, tough job. That job sucks. It's one of the worst jobs in communication in the White House. And I've also heard, I know people say that, Karine Jean-Pierre is a very nice person, but I would have to concur with whoever made that comment in the newsletter. She's one of the worst press secretaries I've ever seen. It's just bad. And when you have a bad press secretary, you have to wonder, okay, are you bad because of the material that you're given that you have to work with, or are you bad because you're just bad? But one of the other is true. she's really, really bad at this.
Yeah, it's a really good question to ask too, because I've thought about that as well. I remember there was a press secretary, and I'm blanking on his name. I can't remember the administration. I think he was recently on Fox, and he basically explained to them, he said, when I was press secretary, I wanted to know everything. And I would tell them, I need to know everything, the honest truth before I go out there. And it was more to cover his own ass, like, I don't want to be made, like you just said, nobody likes to be made a fool. I don't want to go out there and look ridiculous. And in this case, when I watch her, I think, is it whatever's in the binder is not helpful, or are they withholding things from her and she doesn't know? And so then she goes out and says, that's all the documents. And then a couple hours later, more documents come out. But there's a real gap in the communications somewhere in this White House right now. And it's obvious to everybody.
It's terrible. And what they don't understand, and there was an article that came out, I think today, that showed that Anita Dunn was the one behind the strategy to not say anything. And for people who don't know who that is, she was in the Obama administration as well. She's a very controversial figure for obvious reasons, as you see right now. They just totally bungled this. And when you watch those press briefings, it's like you're looking at a robot. Like, she just says the same thing over and over and over again. And then she says, well, per policy, we can't talk about this, when the Justice Department issues a statement like, no, you can talk about it.
I know. That was great. That was great. That was also something where I thought, something's happening here.
Yeah.
This is not typical that the DOJ would come out and say, or a source would leak to Fox, hey, listen, she can say whatever she wants. That's not how this works. That is a big shift from about 5 weeks ago, when everybody was in line and everybody was playing nice and everybody knew their role. And it does feel like, whether or not this documents thing was, I don't want to sound too conspiratorial, so let's just say it was all just a big mistake. But this kind of shift in the way the media and these intelligence agencies are tackling this say to me that they're cutting Joe loose. They can't deal with this. They can barely deal with it, Darvio, for 2 more years, let alone if he runs when he's 82, 83 years old in 2024, which is looking like, you'll notice the timing. He was just about to get his Irish up and announce that he was going to run for president. And I think that they knew, we got to do some, if we're going to turn on him, it's got to be within the next 48 hours. And they did. A lot of people did.
Well, and it's interesting too, because, under normal circumstances, like this would sound like really conspiratorial, but the number one question is, well, who leaked it in the first place? Somebody leaked it. Somebody leaked it to CBS, right? So this had to come from somewhere.
No, it did. And that's another, I've always found that amazing about his administration. As dysfunctional and incompetent and arrogant as they are, they managed to keep a lid on it really well. Like, I look back to the Trump years, there was always these palace intrigue pieces about Donald Trump, and, he's up till 4 a.m. eating cheeseburgers, watching, the Animal Planet or whatever he would watch.
Nobody in the administration knew how to keep their damn mouth shut.
Yeah, everybody blabbed to everybody. And we kind of got used to that. And with Biden, I was thinking, Lord only knows. I mean, the stuff we see of him when he's in public is concerning. So Lord only knows what it's like when the curtains are closed. And yet, very little, like, you don't hear a peep from anybody. So you're right. The fact that someone had to come forward with this and kind of break away from the ranks is something strange about it. It all smells a little weird to me.
Yeah, that's another tell. We're talking with Grace Curley from the Grace Curley Show. Talk a little bit about what you had going on this week on the show. One of your favorite topics or guests or whatever you did this week.
I think one of my favorite topics this week was probably, and I keep butchering his name because I'm not a sports girl, and anyone who listens to my show knows that, but the defenseman from the Flyers, I just keep calling him Provy. It's Ivan Provorov, I think is how you say it. But he refused to wear a warm-up jersey for the game, and it was Pride Night. And he said, very respectfully, he's Russian Orthodox. He said, it's against my religion. It's no disrespect to anybody, but I'm not going to wear it. And immediately there were calls from like sports journalists, people with blue checks, not that Darvio, you know as well as I do, that doesn't mean anything anymore, but real serious people, I'm sure they consider themselves, who make a lot of money, calling for him to be benched and to be sent back to Russia and to enlist in the Ukraine war. And all of these really hateful, intolerant things were said about this person who was simply not even trying to make a statement, just simply trying to follow, his beliefs. And I just found the whole thing astounding. And I guess I shouldn't be surprised because of how wacky everything has become. But just seeing this unfold and seeing the vitriol that was thrown at this guy who really just wanted to play hockey. He didn't want to be, a social justice warrior. He didn't want to take a stand. He just wanted to play hockey. I thought it really encapsulated a lot of what's going on right now in 2023.
And first of all, I have to ask, you're not a sports girl in the part of the country that you live in?
No, okay. I should say this. I love sports. I enjoy them. I love the Bruins. My husband is diehard Bruins fan. I love the Patriots. We're a big football family. I just mean like detail wise, I'm going to botch people's names. I don't really know what's going on. So when these stories come across my desk, luckily I have people I work with who are very into sports, but I got to do some digging before I get into it. It's not like pop culture.
My heart dropped for a second. I'm like, wait a minute, you live in that part of the country and you're not a sports girl? Wait a minute.
I know my husband's going to hear that and lose his mind. No, I am. I should say I'm a sports fan. I'm just not a fanatic. And I think that's where you got to be clear with people.
So, real quick, I want to get your thoughts on this before we wrap up here. Speaking of sports figures, Tony Dungy was also in a controversy, in a tiff, if you will. My co-host Dante is going to be talking about it more in depth a little bit later on in the show during this hot take segment. But I wanted to get your thoughts on this backlash because Tony Dungy, who's never been shy about his views, participated in the March for Life.
My take on it is that, and I tried to explain this to my younger sister. She's Gen Z. I said, I find it very interesting that when athletes or public figures, celebrities take a stance that is applauded by the media, applauded by celebrities, applauded by, politicians in power, like Democrats in power, the younger generations consider that social justice or activism or courage. And when you have people who have a lot to lose, and it would be a lot easier for them to keep their mouths shut and stay home and not participate in something like the March for Life, even if they do believe in it, just easier to stay submerged and keep that opinion to themselves. No one understands how much courage that takes, whether you agree with them or not, whether it's your stance or not. When people have a lot to lose and they choose to speak up anyway because they think it's right, that's real courage. And, I think back to the NBA when, with Black Lives Matter and the NBA, they were supporting all these social movements. And I have no problem with people supporting whatever they want to support. But then you had a few players who wanted to support China. And suddenly the NBA and suddenly these coaches all started saying, well, we don't get political, because that actually required them to put up a lot at stake, to actually have something on the line. And they didn't want to do that. And so with Tony Dungy, I just think it would have been so much easier for him throughout his career to keep his mouth shut and to say nothing. And he didn't do that because he believes what he believes. And I think there's something really powerful about that that's underrated in our current society.
Absolutely. We're talking with Grace Curley from the Grace Curley Show. And since I do know you are a pop culture girl, give me a pop culture topic that you've been focusing on, something that you're paying attention to.
Oh, I mean, it's got to be Harry and Meghan all day long. I don't know. I really try to limit it with my listeners because I know people go crazy. But I was just talking about it with my parents. It's amazing. He's got this new book out, Prince Harry, called Spare, where he's not sparing any details, any of the gory details, and he's bashing his family. And then you have the coronation of King Charles coming up, and whether or not they're going to go, and it's really weird to see the difference in perspective from people in the United States versus people in England and how we view this couple. And I've had so many conversations with people about it, and I can't get enough. I really can't.
Give us a Cliff Notes version of all of the drama that's been going on with Meghan in the print.
Okay, so since Megxit, it's obviously been a lot of back and forth. Meghan and Harry did the Oprah interview, and then they had this documentary series planned on Netflix, and that came out. And, there were some digs at the family. It was pretty much, though, targeted towards the media and saying the media coverage of Meghan in England was not fair. And I fully believe that. I mean,
the British press is brutal.
Yeah, they can be incredibly brutal. And so none of that was really ever in doubt in my mind. And then what happened, and here's what I think is funny about it. A lot of people had been hard on Meghan, and myself included. I think there's something a little disingenuous about her. That's just that's just the honest feeling I get. It's nothing to say she's not a good person or anything like that. I just think she gives off that vibe sometimes like she's an actress, which she is. Mm-hmm. But then Harry comes out with this book, and he's just drudging up things like, I got in a fight with my brother when I was a teenager. I got in a fight with him and he broke my necklace. This happened to me and this happened to me. And then you start going, oh, maybe we've been too hard on Meghan. Maybe this is not a Meghan problem. And this is, a little bit of Harry has some work to do. And I guess my real question for it is, where or when does it end? Like, how long can you keep bashing your family and have that be your talent, essentially, before people say, okay, we got it. We heard enough. The dirty laundry has been aired. We're good.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to say this. I don't get bleeped on my show very often. I'm going to bleep myself on this one. When I saw the story and like read some of the stuff, he sounds like a real bitch. He sounds so weak. It's like, oh.
Well, what's weird too is like I was talking to a listener, and I said, because I really try to come at it with an open mind. And I said, I acknowledge that Harry probably had a hard life. And a listener called in and he was mad at me. And he said, what do you mean he had a hard life? I work 7 days a week. He's a prince, blah, blah. And I said, no, I think he's had a lot of hardship. He lost his mom when he was very young in front of the whole world. And I don't think it's been easy on him. And I think there's a lot of probably damage there that he's never dealt with, but he's just dealing with it on such a public, platform for everyone to work through. And it's like, this is stuff you talk about with your family in private. I don't know if it's helping. I don't know.
I would say a lot of the celebrities, because there's been celebrities over the past few months that have done that. And, you're right. Like, they shouldn't be so public about it, because really all they're doing is feeding these bloggers what they want, and feeding the people what they want, something to gossip about, something to talk about, when truly they should be working this out behind closed doors. Like, it's so toxic, it's so unhealthy, and it's not going to do much for them. And truly, let's say they do make up with their family, if he makes up with his family, and then what? Now everybody else hates his family because everything he was just saying about them.
Yeah, you know what, Robin? It's like when you have a boyfriend or something, and you're mad, so you tell all your friends, and then you make up with your boyfriend, and then all your friends hate your boyfriend, and you're like, oh, yes. No, he's cool now. He's cool. And they're like, he's not cool to me.
It's like, oops, maybe I should have told all my business.
Yeah, right.
Grace, let them know how to listen to the show. when the show comes on, how to listen to it online as well for people that are outside of the area, and how to follow you on social media.
All right. Well, you guys can follow me at G_Curley on Twitter and on Instagram. You can listen to my show on the iHeart app or at gracecurleyshow.com, or we also put it up as a podcast. So wherever you get your podcasts, and you can read all my stuff at spectatorworld.com or thebostonherald.com, and occasionally on the Daily Mail. And I just want to say thank you so much. I love being on here with you guys. You're so fun. And I can't wait to hear Dante's take on all of the sports political drama of the day.
Oh, I can't wait either. It's gonna be something. Knowing Dante the way that I know Dante, I know it's gonna be something.
Like I told Darville, just check my Twitter right now.
I can imagine. I haven't had a chance to look at it yet because we've been doing the show, but I can only imagine. So thank you so much, Grace, for coming on the show. It's always a pleasure. Time flies, like a half an hour is already gone because we just have so much fun when you're on the show. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, guys, for the opportunity. I have such a blast. Anytime you call me, I'm here.
I appreciate that. Stay tuned. We'll be back with more of the Outlaws after this.